Hello, 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 and we are back with another episode.
Hi, welcome back. Yes, thank you for tuning in. Or is that a podcast thing? Tuning in? I guess you don't have to tune.
You do tune in. I mean, you tune into your phone.
Yeah, you turn on the broadband and it does the me.
Everyone's got one of those dials that you have in the car with the
Yeah,
seeker that goes left and right with all the different bands of frequencies.
I would love that, but different faces for different podcasts. So you've
That's
just got
right.
Conan O'Brien's head,
Yeah.
and then like the
Then
Weekly
us
Planet
all
guys,
the
and
way in the back.
all the way at the back.
Yeah.
Our heads are really small.
Like what's our frequency? 2000 hertz or
Point
something
one.
like that. Anyway, yeah, welcome back to Chatting Pitch. Thank you for tuning in. And this is episode 2 of season 2. So we've decided that we're going to be splitting us up into seasons. So what we did 3 years ago, that's season 1. This is going to be season 2. So after we're done with season 2, we'll see you in another 3 years.
Yeah, when Netflix come to us with that big deal.
Yeah. Big Netflix money, baby.
Although that means you're only going to hang around for 3 seasons, doesn't it? Because they cancel everything after 3, right?
Right, yeah. Speaking of 3, have you seen 3 Body Problem?
We've talked
What
about
a
this.
show! I haven't seen anything past episode 1, by the way. I honestly don't really know how to feel about the show. It didn't grip me, and you have your opinions, don't you?
Yeah, I've watched the whole thing, which was difficult. I reviewed it. I did say in one of my reviews, it's really difficult when you're binge watching a show that you're still undecided on,
Yeah.
and it's getting towards the end of it.
They say, "Oh, you got to give it a chance." That's what they say.
mm,
And I gave the first episode a chance, and I've been told that episode 2 gets better, and then it gets even better at episode 5, right? And then it kind of peters out and doesn't do anything with any
Yeah,
of
I
their
mean,
ideas.
I guess minor, well, major spoilers. I guess so. Move on
I
to the
mean,
next thing if you haven't watched it yet. But
well, hold on. If you're going to do major spoilers, then what about me? What if I wanted to watch?
oh well, I was just going to say that the ending is not a definitive ending.
Oh,
It,
okay, so a cliffhanger, essentially.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I think I mentioned to you it ends with the line, "We have work to do."
Oh God,
Um,
no! That's like the
no,
whole yeah.
another $120 million or whatever they spent on it. I mean, I don't know how accurate those numbers are because
There's nothing worse than not wrapping anything up and just saying at the end, "Tune in for season 2."
yeah,
Um,
turn
I
those
mean, at least have
dials.
some. Are there any answers to be had
There,
towards the end
there
of the
are
season?
there are answers, and there's stuff that happens with a couple of the characters. I
Hmm.
don't want to give too much away because you haven't seen it.
Hmm.
But around episode 7, that's quite like very tense and quite heartbreaking. And I did find myself really wanting, if anyone's seen it, the big plan sort of episode 7 or 8. They all blend when you're
Okay.
binge watching them, but they have a big plan around episode 7 or 8, and you really want it to work for all the right reasons as well. And it's really, really tense. But then there's just other bits where you get characters just disappearing, and it's you're sort of sat there thinking, well, that character had really great potential, but you've
Yeah.
put them on screen for 2 minutes and disappeared them. And I think "put them on the bus" is a phrase that some people use, where it's the character just gets they just leave the show, and they might come back at some point. But they really set
Wait,
that they
hold on.
set up
Can
a
you
lot.
explain the
Go on.
bus analogy? Well, like, how does that work? If you put them on the bus, they're going to
I
come
guess
back
the
at some point.
analogy is just, yeah, they're put on a bus and they go somewhere very far away, and there's a chance they might come back and visit. Um,
I mean, if you look at the bus timetable, then you'll know when they'll come back.
yeah, and I mean there are cuts to public transport, so you just don't know when this analogy is going to fall apart.
Yeah.
But the show sets up a lot in episode 7, and I was sat there thinking, wow, okay, this episode 8 is just going to be like gangbusters. It's just going to be wall to wall, fast moving, fast paced, like a real drive to it. But they just stuck a cliffhanger on the end.
Yeah.
I just
And
think it's
as
a show where I expected more.
I think I said to you earlier about this, and it doesn't surprise me that it kind of fell a bit flat based on how. And I haven't seen Game of Thrones, like other than season one. I don't think I watched anything after that, just because there was just too much hype and I couldn't keep up. But from what I've heard, the ending to Game of Thrones really kind of falls flat, and based on that, I'm not surprised that this new series that they've created, because it is from the creators of Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah, there's two of them, and someone called Alexander Wu who made something else. I can't remember. Made something else quite big as well.
Is he the director?
No, I think they're credited as producers.
Okay.
Maybe
Because I know
showrunners.
that the only thing I know about the background of this is that it's the Game of Thrones producers or creators, and it's based on a Chinese book. That's all I know. And it's quite
There is
prevalent. Like in the
Chinese
first episode
version as well.
there's a Chinese version. So
Yeah, there's a Chinese produced version of the show that came out maybe last year.
wait, oh, so a completely different series, as in not the same actors. It's their own version of it. For some reason, I thought you meant like it's the Chinese version, kind of like how Iron Man 3 had their Chinese version, where they just insert certain
Oh
scenes.
no, an entirely different production. Yeah.
Okay, kind of
So
like
it'd be interesting to compare those two, but yeah.
like when they did the Mexican version of Breaking Bad. Have you seen that?
No.
It's called like Metastas or something like that. It's like
Okay.
the Spanish translation of Breaking Bad,
Okay.
and it's beat for beat the same thing, but the budget's slightly lower. So I think the main guy, is just wearing a bald cap the whole time,
Right.
who's playing Walter White, and they're all speaking Spanish. And I guess it kind of makes sense because it is to do with Mexican cartels, right?
I think
From the
get
original.
involved. I think because of where it's set. It's set in Arizona, I think. Breaking Bad. So there's just geographically, you get some Mexican involvement in through different characters.
I almost just don't. Well, I guess I see the point because it's translating it for a different audience, but I don't understand what the point is when it's shot for shot the same thing, and you could just watch a dub version. But maybe there's a market for that, which
maybe. I mean, I guess that's what they thought with the Netflix version of Three Body Problem. Hey, there's this Chinese produced version, but we'll westernize it and we'll have everyone talk English.
They actually did have scenes full blown in Mandarin, which I was surprised at when I was watching the first 5 minutes of it, and I was like, this is just in a completely different language, and it's supposed to be one of their flagship shows on Netflix at the moment. And I don't know about you, but I think the general public don't particularly like reading subtitles, but they're like, oh, this is a great show, maybe I should watch this. And I don't know if that's going to be off-putting for quite a lot of people. The amount of people who I know who's like, oh, I'm not going to watch that, it's got subtitles in it. Yeah, which I don't have a problem with, but doesn't the Shogun show is like completely subtitled? Is it all Japanese?
Yeah, Shogun do it quite interesting in an interesting way, where the Japanese is subtitled, and one of the main characters is an English sailor, but he's pretty much the only English person there. After the first few scenes, the rest of his crew were sort of left in prison. So when the actor is speaking English, the character is actually speaking Portuguese.
Oh, how does that work?
Because the story is that the Portuguese are the only European people that have shown up in Japan.
Right.
So some of the Japanese characters know Portuguese because they've learned it because these new people have come along.
Yeah.
But none of them would know English. So this English sailor knows Portuguese.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a bit bizarre now. I'm trying to explain it, but yeah, when the actors are speaking English, it's actually in universe, it's Portuguese.
Like what's that movie with Tom Cruise in World War II, where it starts off in German and then it
Oh,
zooms into his mouth and then he's translated into
does it
English.
zoom into his mouth? What,
I
like
think it
that
does, yeah.
shot with Christopher Lee as the dentist in Willy Wonka? Is it like that?
Wait, Christopher Lee in Willy Wonka? Which one? The
Pretty
original
sure it's
one?
Willy Wonka, the Tim Burton one.
Tim Burton. Oh, I've never seen the Tim Burton version. I've only seen the Gene Wilder one in the
Oh,
70s.
I haven't seen the whole thing. I just what a bizarre scene to walk in on. But the rest of my family were watching it, and
Uh-huh.
there's just this scene where it's Christopher Lee using what would on set be these massive dentist tools because the shot is clearly been it's a camera inside a giant fake mouth,
Oh, okay.
and it's
Kind of
him like
like
being a dentist. Let me have a look see.
like Steve Martin in Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes,
Yes, exact same
one of those films is
set.
better than the other. Yeah.
They just used the same set. They somehow kept that for years, and then
They
Tim
just
Burton just went
Tim
in.
Burtoned it
I'll
up.
take this. Speaking of Tim Burton does a bunch of horror films, so we were supposed to be. We were supposed
Leslie
to
is
be
in
talking
charge
about.
of the segues. You said the number 3. Have you seen Three Body Problem?
Yeah, and then we just talked about Three
And
Body
the
Problem for about
sequel,
10
Four
minutes.
Body Problem. Just when you thought they'd solved the 3-body problem.
There was one
There's
more.
another song.
What were we going to talk about? Yeah, so horror movies was what we were supposed to talk about, but we ended up talking about something else entirely different for the past 11
This is
minutes.
because you went to see Late Night with the Devil, which has
That's
gotten
right.
great. It's gotten great reviews. I haven't seen it, so I would love to. Well, first off, what's the premise? Because I know it's a talk show, like Late
Okay.
Night with the Devil. Is it like when
So-
the executive producer has too much power? And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Conan, but the sponsors want you interviewing PewDiePie." Or
Essentially that, but set in the 70s.
essentially that.
and,
Say no more.
Yeah. Well, lost my train of thought now. All I can think about was Conan O'Brien interviewing PewDiePie. So the movie kind of, without spoilers, movie starts off kind of like a mockumentary style. So it's like, this is never before seen footage of Late Nights with so-and-so. And they do a little bit of backstory. They tell you like what this guy went through. And essentially what it is a late night talk show host. His ratings are going down. So the only way to bring it back up is to do more controversial things. And this particular episode is going to be about, what is it? This particular show is going to be about like demons and possession and all that kind of stuff. And that's the long short of it. So the first 10 minutes or so is like a mockumentary, and then you see the live taping from start to finish. And it's kind of like littered in between with some scenes of like breaking the fourth wall a little bit, where it just goes in black and white, and then you can see them talking to each other like behind the set, not live on air. And then when it becomes color, it's like, okay, this is broadcast television now.
Okay, I was going to say, I was going to ask how they got round, because I love the
Doing
idea of found footage, and the
Yeah.
camera is not some little handheld camera; it's a TV station camera.
No,
So
so they
how
kind
do-
of
how
like
do they
they
get- how
bend the
do they get
rules a little
around
bit
the-
there,
Right.
where they try and like build more story and more character. When they say we're going to cut to a break, and then it goes black and white, and you can see almost like someone's doing behind the scenes footage.
Right.
So I guess in that way, it's slightly unbelievable on that part. Because it kind of took me out of it. I thought I was going to be watching the whole broadcast from start to finish, but then I can kind of see why they did what they did. But yeah, in short, it was a very good movie. I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
My best part of the movie was when the guy in front of me was trying to book Alton Towers tickets for about an
Wow.
hour and a half, and he had his phone out, full brightness.
An hour and a
Trying-
half. So we're talking like most of the movie.
I'd say an hour and 15 minutes, maybe. The final act, he finally put his phone away because it was interesting enough for him.
Because he got the fast pass tickets.
Yeah. And I think he was trying to get these like 2-for-1 coupons or something like that. I don't know what he was on, like voucher or something.
Okay.
But luckily enough, I was
Wow.
in a screen that had recliner seats. and because of the recliners, I was able to go
So you
all the way
reclined his
back.
seat.
I reclined. I reached over to his seat and I reclined all
You
the
pulled out the
way.
dentist tools, and you were like,
Yeah,
"Hey, Buster."
until his phone flew out of his hand, and I was like, yeah, that's the way to do it. Um, I'm not usually the kind of person who speaks up in a cinema unless it's really bad. So there was only one time where I did really say something, and it was when I was watching a movie that was in 3D in IMAX, and I had the 3D glasses on, and then within the first 10 minutes, the person right in front of me started filming the show on his little iPhone, just recording it.
Please tell me he had his phone and then he put the 3D glasses over the camera.
He had two phones,
between
one
the
for
lenses.
each lens. There's recording it so you can get the stereoscopic thing. But yeah, I kind of reached over to him and I kind of touched him on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, can you stop recording the film?" And then he said, "Oh yeah, sorry, didn't know you could do that. You couldn't do that." So yeah, after that, I got to enjoy the rest of the movie.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't know I couldn't do that.
Wow.
So yeah, going back to the movie,
Yeah.
it was good. No, it was really good. In fact,
I have a question for you about found footage. It'd be
Yes.
interesting to know your opinion. Do you think found footage horror films have to be 100% following that strict rule of it all being found footage then? Because
no,
could you not do something with the change in style?
yeah, you don't have to stick to that rule because otherwise you're kind of pigeonholing yourself into a specific cage where it's like you have to be in these confined restrictions of like, okay, it has to be all through this lens, so you couldn't say like you couldn't cut the footage unless there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
You know, for instance, like in
Like a Hostess
Cloverfield,
commercial.
like a
We'll be right back.
That's right. I was speaking to Matt about this before we start recording, and sometimes I have the knack of thinking about the next thing I want to say instead of adding to something that Matt has already said. And I just had one of those moments. So if
We're
you
gonna
do notice
continue
that,
doing
Matt,
that.
you need to reel me back in.
You're fine, mate. You're fine.
Come on, help me out, mate.
It's all good. Yeah, I
So,
do feel like you could do something with the change in style, especially
yeah.
with something that is set on a show.
hmm
It's a late night show, and then you could, I don't know, you could do something with that.
They do stuff with it, but I don't want to say too much without
Okay,
spoiling it. You
don't
know,
spoil it.
they do break out of that a little bit, but
Okay.
yeah.
One other thing, is my mic still okay? Because I know that we had a problem with
No, it's
echoiness
fine.
last time, which I do have to apologise for anyone who's heard that.
It's
So it's all
absolutely
good.
fine.
Sound quality's fine.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, that's great. No echoiness now.
You think I'd know what he's eating, but
No
he's
echo?
eating off screen, so it's a mystery. Hey, two can play at that game.
No.
Why do you sound like Mac from that
That's what I was
one
doing,
season
yeah.
of Always Sunny?
When he's got just got that bin
Yeah,
bag
do you want some insulin?
full of tacos. Yeah. And Dennis is like, well, what I really like is some crack.
Okay, so what were we talking about? You were asking me about the constraints of found footage and whether or not that needs to be. Why? What's the reason in you asking?
I feel like it's almost a missed opportunity. You know, you go to make a horror film, but then, like you say, you're almost putting yourself in a cage. You're almost trapping yourself. I'm not saying that found footage horrors can't be good, because there are some really, really fantastic ones, but it's almost like you put this constraint on yourself, and then maybe a creative opportunity comes up and you sit there and say, well, we can't do it because it wouldn't work with the logic of found footage. Well, just don't don't do some of it found footage. I don't know. I don't know how people feel about that. I guess there's going to be some people who think it all has to be on camera and it all
Yeah.
has to fit to keep that the sort of verisimilitude and all
Those
those other
found
long
footage
words.
elitists always coming at us.
In their ivory towers with their ivory handheld cameras.
Tell you what, this is a brilliant segue in to the next section where we come up with our own
Ooh,
horror found footage ideas.
let's pitch, shall we?
Yeah, let's pitch. You said that you want to create a horror movie that is found footage but doesn't have to be found footage. So why don't you start with that?
For some reason, I made some notes. For some reason, my first note says Freddy versus Jason multiverse, but I don't know how that would work.
Isn't that already a multiverse?
I guess,
Or like a shared universe?
Well, when I said multiverse, in my head it was just a bunch of different Freddys and Jasons. Like one of them's wearing a slightly different color striped sweater.
I get what you
And
mean. I
there's
get what you mean.
The winner of the fight is the Jason who's wearing a sombrero and he's got those like the bullet belts over his chest.
I haven't seen enough of.
He's French, by the way.
I don't think I've actually watched a single Nightmare on Elm Street movie. At least not all the way through. Have you?
Well, weirdly enough, it's a film series where I don't really know which ones I've seen because I saw them when I was a bit younger.
Well, there's the one with Johnny Depp.
Yeah, that's the first one, isn't it?
That's the first one,
there's that sort of famous, maybe it's true, maybe it's not stories where it was something like he drove his friend to the audition who was auditioning for the film.
Okay.
And they were like, hey, you're Johnny Depp, famous movie star. Be in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, and that's how he got cast. So the friend actually got a more minor role than Johnny Depp? Was that?
I'm not sure if it was more minor or not, but yeah, I think that's how Johnny Depp got his start when they recognised that he was Johnny Depp, famous movie star. I think that's how the story goes. I've lost my train of thought slightly.
I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
The Depp That Couldn't Slow Down. But have you got an idea for your own horror film? Whether it's found footage or not, let's not.
Well, I kind of want to hear more about your Freddy vs. Jason multiverse thing. Or is that as far as it goes?
That's pretty much as far as it goes.
Okay. Well,
Freddy versus Jason multiverse. Does this devolve into a bunch of stereotypes? Because you've got French Freddy who's still got the glove,
right?
But he's also got a cigarette because that's the French stereotype, isn't it? I suppose.
Yes.
The British Jason, he's wearing a bowler hat, but he's still got the hockey mask on.
Oh, so you're making up these Freddy Krueger types, where it's like anything you can, like Gremlins 2, where you can throw anything at the wall and it will stick.
One of my favorite movies. Yeah, I mean, it leads to one of my favorite stereotypes. And when I say my favorite stereotypes, it's one of my favorites because it's so, I don't want to say ludicrous because it's not really over the top, but it's whenever you've got a French person in a film and they've got a cigarette and, Leslie, I need you to ask me a question that has like a yes answer.
Okay.
So ask me a question.
Excuse me, are you French?
And I don't know why.
That sounds like such an old school joke. I can imagine someone like Steve Martin doing that. Where have you seen that? Is that a trope that you've noticed?
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's the prevailing stereotype of French characters, but I have noticed that it's a thing, and whenever it happens, I love it.
Okay. Where. Sounds like a little duck.
Like they're just out of breath because they're halfway through smoking.
I've never seen this. I've never seen this trope.
No?
Is it specifically French characters in movies?
Well, I'm guessing so because they're speaking French. And
okay, all right.
The majority, I guess.
Does
you could have Canadian.
The Frenchman in? Do you remember The Matrix 2, where there was that French man? Does he do that?
I'm not sure.
Where, you're in a simulation.
Am I in a simulation? Where?
Where?
Why? You've turned him into
Okay.
Wario.
Let's.
Oh no! Although it does lead to. Do you remember the
Leads to my
stereotype
next
that
idea.
they use in
Wario
Godzilla?
in a horror movie with that.
He'd be a great horror character.
He's
Drops
the
him from the ceiling.
he's the slasher in this movie.
It's an untapped
Everyone
market.
running away from Wario, going little cigar.
They're all the mini
Little
ones.
French Wario.
The big Wario's got the cigar. And then you've
The
got all
French
the little
Wario
ones.
Massacre. Yeah.
What a title. I'm sold.
Sorry, you were saying something else before I wildly went onto that tangent.
Oh, what was I talking? Oh, yeah. For some reason, it just brings to mind that stereotype in was it the 90s that Matthew Broderick Godzilla film got made,
Right. Yes, 1990.
where they used the stereotype of they're trying to break in to
was
some
it
military stronghold.
Jean Reno's character?
Yeah. And they persuade the guards that they're all American soldiers just by chewing gum. And they just do that nod of their head. And they're like, well, that's American enough for us.
Yeah. So you asked me what my idea for a horror movie would be. I could run with the French Wario Massacre joke, but that wasn't what I planned. What I planned was to use a movie genre mashup generator that I found on Google. And it says, pick 2 film genres at random. And you just click in fact, I wonder if I can share my screen.
This is Leslie Way, who is struggling for freelance work because AI is taking all of his usual
That's right.
work from him.
Now, can you see my screen that I'm sharing?
Generatorland. I've just given him a shout out.com.
Yeah, generatorland.com.
How does that work?
So my idea, right? So when you click on it, it gives you 2 genres at random. And then I'm just going to keep clicking until I get horror. And then whichever other genre is attached to horror, that's the one that I'm going to run with.
Okay, that's going to be your pitch, okay.
That's going to be my pitch. So let's see. Exploitation superhero. Political disaster. Martial arts biopic. Action romance. Epic western. Superhero mockumentary. Romance rom-com. Isn't that just the same thing?
What a blend. 50% romance.
50% rom-com.
50% rom-com.
So basically 75% romance, 25% comedy.
We've done the maths. I've watched Three Body Problem. I'm a physicist now.
Okay, let's keep going. Buddy heist. Postmodern mockumentary. Biopic western. Sci-fi heist. Gross out crime. Mockumentary legal. Melodrama
what would
comedy.
Gross out crime be? What's that?
I guess like
people...
American Pie meets True Detective.
But they actually get imprisoned for all the horrible things they do.
Yeah, basically. Crime.
That's my favourite mashup.
Crime.
So that's 75% crime,
100%
25% romance.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to stop reading them out. I'm just going to keep clicking until I get to a horror. So let's see. I can cut all this out or not. Oh, romance horror.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
They fall in love with the killer.
Romance horror. I'm going to get rid of this now. So, romance horror. I mean, there's plenty of romance horrors that are out there, right? But what hasn't been done? That's the energy that we need to bring to Chat and Pitch. It's coming up with things that have never been done before.
Well, I think the first thing we need to decide is the romance and the horror actually blended? So you can't really have one with the other? Or do we have a horror story
it's 50%
where there is
romance.
a romance going on?
I reckon it's 50% romance, 50% horror.
Okay.
Quite literally, the first half is a romance, and then it shifts into horror, kind of like how Dusk Till Dawn does the whole...
Yeah.
Well, if you haven't seen it, like, go watch it, but like it's halfway through, it just completely...
Oh, the change is wild.
Shifts, yeah. So that's what I want to do.
That's the one where I first noticed that George Clooney does his head bobble thing.
His Jay Leno head bobble. Yeah. Is that like a tall Caucasian silver fox type thing? Because
Oh, what, like a Clark Gable? If you go back
yeah,
and watch all Clark Gable's movies, he's wobbling his head. Ooh.
I'll be honest with you, I
That's
don't know
how
who
they came up
Clark
with the
Gable
post
is.
production, the camera stabilizer thing. Ooh.
Oh, let me type in Clark Gable. Who's
Bobblehead.
he? Oh, this gentleman from Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, we're thinking
Okay.
old school.
Yeah, we're thinking old school. Okay.
Maybe it starts
So
off with a wedding.
okay.
So the first half is a wedding,
Mm-hmm.
and then halfway through we can have it devolve into horror in some way. I don't know. What are you
Oh, how
thinking?
about the whole movie is set at a wedding, and
Okay.
then you have the first act is everyone turning up.
Hmm.
They don't know where they're supposed to sit. Um, and then a room divided, bride and grooms.
Okay.
And then second act is ceremony,
Okay.
and then third act reception.
Right.
But halfway through the second act is where it hits the fan.
Okay, but how does it hit the fan? What happens?
Okay, so let's think about different tropes. You've got vampires, you got zombies,
Okay. Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
robots in disguise. Robots in the skies. So robots from space, but they're horror robots.
I don't like thinking about that Will Smith film, and you know it.
Okay. So you got your slasher type movies, you got your monster movies, vampires, supernatural. I say all of them.
I think
Every guest in the
Oh, wow.
wedding. Every guest in the wedding
I
is
just did a
actually
double
a
take.
different.
Oh,
Have you
they're all
seen
di-
every guest in
Blah, this is the groom side. Ah, ah, ah.
and Hellraiser's on the other side? Oh, this is the bride side.
Come, sit next to me.
Clearly, I've never seen Hellraiser. I don't know how he speaks.
I don't know. Never seen it.
I actually didn't know. I tell a lie. I did watch the Hellraiser remake that they did a couple of years ago. That was released on Hulu, which is now Disney Plus, and that's
Okay.
all the talk
Any
of
good?
the town today. It was okay. I don't think it's anything to rave about. I mean, I've never seen the originals, so
No.
I've got nothing to compare.
No. All I
So
know is
watching
there's a
it-
guy with pins. So
Pins in his
presumably
head.
at the wedding, whenever anyone tries to sit down, he takes out one of his pins and puts it under their bottom.
Yeah.
Boink!
Oopsie.
I'm a Hellraiser.
Yeah. So every guest in the every
Is
guest
a
at the wedding
different-
is a different character from
Right.
different Hollywood. Sorry. So
Okay.
this kind of like brings into your sort of multiverse thing as well, where
Right.
it's horror wedding multiverse.
Yeah, Bride of Frankenstein, also My Cousin's Dracula. Yeah.
But I think what happens is halfway through they all take their masks off, and it turns out that they're all horror icons,
Different
right?
ones.
So it's kind of like
Oh, I thought you
remember that
meant the
movie-
vampire becomes the mummy, and the mummy becomes a zombie, and the zombie is actually
almost-
Dracula.
change places.
Like,
Yeah, I think
like it's a totally redundant plot twist.
exactly.
You could
I
have
think-
them do it one by one as well. Did you know that I am actually I'm not Count Dracula.
So
I'm
Scooby Doo.
Imhotep. Well, I'm not really Imhotep. I'm Frankenstein's monster.
Well, I'm not really Frankenstein. I'm that guy from Temple of Doom, Galima.
And then by the time you get round everyone,
yeah.
everyone's still there. It's the same guest list.
And at the end, it just everyone becomes skeletons because of how many layers they've been peeling off. And then it becomes Jason and the Argonauts.
And then they all do a dance, and then
Yeah.
the movie finishes.
The end.
I'm just imagining the priest at this wedding. He's sort of like, getting his notes.
He's just a normal
prepared.
priest.
He's
like,
got his Bible. Yeah, he's just a normal priest. Gets his Bible, and he turns around. And he just sort of, oh, okay.
He looks at the camera at the end, and he's like, "I hate Mondays," and then the credits roll.
And then there's that big circle that goes around his head.
And the Looney
That's all,
Tunes
folks.
theme plays. My initial idea was It
It
was
was
going to
not
be
that.
kind of like what's that movie? The Witches, right? The Roald Dahl's The Witches, where
Okay.
they all look normal, and then at the end they like halfway through they take all their there's sprinklings like hints that they could be these characters, but then
Okay.
halfway through they take off their masks and it turns
Right.
out they're all horror. But I prefer it the way that you've said, where we start off with everyone being horror movie icons, and then
Mm.
halfway through they all switch places into other horror movie icons, and no one knows who's who anymore. So it's kind of like a guess who, like who done it situation.
Mm.
It's a murder mystery. It's a murder mystery set at a wedding, and all the characters are horror movie.
The body was found with bites on the neck, but did you know I'm not really Count Dracula?
I am, and it's Tom Cruise.
I'm a cake.
What kind of cake?
Oh, I don't know. I suppose if
Red
it's...
velvet.
Yeah, yeah.
Blah.
Would Frankenstein's monster just be different cakes smushed together?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
You got Jaffa cakes. You got Battenbergs.
Just shoved on top of each other.
All Mr. Kipling's.
Created a monster.
His name is Mr. Kipling. It's just all different Kipling cakes smashed into one.
No, Leslie, this is the trope that everyone gets wrong. Mr. Kipling is the
Mr. Kipling
scientist.
is the scientist.
Mr. Kipling's monster is the monster.
This is so dumb. Fantastic. What's the what's the name of the what's the name of the movie?
I don't know.
I think that's it. I think we've peaked.
Plot twist. That's not really the title of the movie.
It's called Frankie's Day Out or something.
Yeah.
No, it's called Mr. Kipling's Monster's Wedding.
Yeah, it's
Part
got
one.
layers like a cake.
Yeah. Like a cake. I don't think there's anything else to
Mr.
add.
Kipling's wedding. It's fine.
I think that's it. I think that might be the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it's what is it? So recap. It's a horror comedy.
Yeah.
No, sorry. It's a horror romance, but it's also a murder mystery.
Mm.
All the characters are horror movie icons. Halfway through, they change characters, and at some point, Mr. Kipling, who is this universe's Frankenstein,
Yeah.
has a monster made of different cakes.
Yeah.
What's his involvement? Is Mr. Kipling's
I think
monster
I think
the
Mr.
one that's getting married?
No, I think Mr. Kipling is the groom, isn't he?
Is the groom, and Mr. Kipling's monster is the bride.
Is the
He's marrying his own creation. But who done it?
Who sliced the cake?
Who sliced the cake? But there's a cake, right, at a wedding.
Oh yeah, a wedding cake.
There's a cake at the. So is he the cake?
Or maybe that's the murder. Maybe Mr. Kipling is getting married to someone else, and then later on they find Mr. Kipling's monster has had like a slice taken out of him.
Yeah.
And the killer at the end, it's revealed like, oh, I didn't know. I thought he was the wedding cake, and that's the reason why.
And what's a character that's like that in horror movies?
What? He sort of flaps his hands around. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing.
Oh, Shaggy.
I just don't know. Just leave me alone.
Is that John Lovitz? Who are you doing?
No, that was not John Lovitz.
Where it's last our meaning. Chocolates.
Drink up. That little look.
Is that him from Rat
gives.
Race?
Yeah. That
great
stupid
movie.
scene, I really love it. That stupid scene where he's supposed to be like speaking German, but it's just because he's got something lodged in his throat.
He has a cigarette lighter. And it burns a little like mustache above his lip.
Yes. Oh no, it's lipstick, isn't it? Lipstick on the wheel.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, lipstick on the wheel.
And he crashes, and he's just got the And he just so happens to be driving past a
Yeah, like a World War One reenactment or veteran convention.
World War II veterans parade or something.
Yeah, that's it.
What a movie.
Okay, well, I think we can safely say
we've got your
a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the name of the movie?
Wow.
Frankie's Day Out.
Mr. Kipling's Wedding.
Mr. Kipling's Day
I
Out.
suppose you lose the From Dusk Till Dawn element where you're surprised because the horror icons are there from the beginning, right? But I guess you can just have. I guess you can have just little bits like Dracula turns up, and the person at the hotel where they're having the wedding is like, "You get free use of the sauna," and he's like, "Ugh, this again."
So, romance horror. I guess the first half is the first half a romance and the second half a horror, or the first half a horror and the second half is a romance.
I think the first half we do a reverse From Dusk Till Dawn. So you have all these horror characters show up, but it turns out they're going to a wedding.
Okay.
And then
it's all
twist,
nice and
it does devolve into a horror film.
Yeah. So it's like a twist on a twist.
I guess you've got 3 twists because it's called Mr. Kipling's Wedding as well.
And it turns out the murderer at the end is actually Oliver Twist. And he's at the cake.
That well-known,
please.
that well-known horror icon.
Well, that's the twist.
That's the twist.
He's not a horror.
Oh no, I get it.
The end.
The end.
We've done it. Jerry Bruckheimer. Our number's in the description. Give us a call. Yeah, that's it. I guess we end it there.
Yeah.
Let the outro do the outro.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for listening. That's all in the outro, isn't it?
Yeah, it is all in the outro. Yeah, we don't have to do anything anymore. Like, apologies. Last week we actually didn't have an outro, but this week we will have an outro. Hopefully, if this editing software doesn't glitch out this time. So here's the outro.
Let us know in the comments if there's an outro.
If there even is a comment section. And then I'll end it there.
Nice.
How do I stop this thing?
I don't know.
Chatting Pitch has been brought to you by Leslie Way and Matthew D. Smith. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to listen to others and maybe even subscribe. You can follow us on the website, formerly known as Twitter.
Listen to us on Spotify or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Leslie and Matthew have their own side hustles as well. Feel free to check out Leslie's YouTube channel or Matthew's Medium blog. Links in the description. If you want anything else, we might have other links in the description if we think of anything interesting to add. Thank you for listening. I love you.